After the sudden loss of her son, a distraught mother is paralyzed when she hears a voice throughout the house. Determined, she follows the sounds to his room, unaware that what she will find there will make her discover that love can be reborn from the darkest ashes and that sometimes, unexpected heroes appear in the most unlikely forms. Amanda Jones glanced at the clock for the fourth time that afternoon. The hands moved relentlessly, each tick-tock sounding like a war drum in her anxious mind. She had prepared her son Eric's favorite lunch, hoping a homemade meal might break the invisible barrier that had grown between them. Eric, now 15, had become increasingly distant, spending most of his time locked in his room, immersed in video games or buried in books. It was hard for Amanda not to long for simpler days when her boy was still small and they shared everything. After her husband's death from cancer, Amanda found herself alone, struggling to raise Eric as best as she could. But as Eric grew older, it seemed like she was losing the thread that held them together. Minutes turned into hours, and Amanda's worry intensified. She tried calling the school, but Eric's teacher, Mrs. Matthews, informed her there were no extra classes that day. Desperate, Amanda began calling Eric's friends, but none of them knew where he was. Panic began to grip Amanda. She ran to the neighbors' houses, hoping someone had seen her son. With each denial she received, her heart beat faster, echoing in her head like a frenzied drum. "I need to go to the police station," Amanda thought, determined. But before she could leave the house, her phone rang, and the news she could never have imagined awaited her on the other end of the line. "Hello, am I speaking with Amanda Jones?" a deep male voice asked. "Yes? Who is this?" Amanda replied, her voice trembling. "I'm Officer Ben Davis, ma'am. It's about your son, Eric Jones." Amanda felt her heart stop for a second. "Officer, I'm so relieved you found him. I was so worried." "I'm sorry, ma'am," the officer interrupted. "I have bad news. Your son's body was found in a lake near the school. It appears he was trying to save a classmate when the ice broke beneath his feet." The ground seemed to disappear beneath Amanda. "It can't be true. There must be a mistake," she murmured, pain crushing her heart. "I understand it's difficult, ma'am. We need you to come and identify the body," the officer continued, his voice gentle but firm. Amanda barely heard the rest of the conversation. Grief, guilt, and despair overwhelmed her completely. And so, with tears in her eyes and a shattered heart, Amanda knew her life would never be the same. Amanda sat in the living room armchair, unable to move. The days following the officer's phone call were a blur of pain and disbelief. She could hardly believe Eric, her boy, was truly gone. The funeral passed like a vivid nightmare, with Amanda feeling like a ghost among sad faces and words of comfort. The morning after the burial, Amanda was awakened by a strange sound coming from Eric's room. Still groggy and with eyes swollen from crying, she thought she heard Eric's voice calling out to her. It must be a dream, she thought, but curiosity and irrational hope made her get up and go to her son's room. Opening the door, she was greeted by silence. The room was as Eric had left it, books scattered, video games stacked, and the bed unmade. Amanda approached the bed, feeling a lump in her throat. That's when she heard it again. "Hi, Mommy." The voice was clear and childlike. Amanda, heart racing, knelt down and looked under the bed. To her surprise, she found a cage with a small green parrot. The bird tilted its head and repeated, "Hi, Mommy." Tears came with renewed force, and Amanda fell to her knees, embracing the cage. "Eric, my dear, what have you done?" she murmured, sobbing. Amanda remembered the last argument with Eric about his desire to have a pet. He had been so insistent, and she, worried about finances, had refused. The discovery of the parrot was a mix of pain and comfort, proof of her son's stubbornness and love. Determined to uncover more about the parrot and its story, Amanda decided to go to the park where Eric used to play. And it was there that she met Chris, a homeless boy, and the story began to unfold in a way she could never have imagined. With the parrot in its cage, Amanda went to the park hoping to find answers. The place was bustling with children playing and parents watching. but her eyes fixed on a boy in worn-out clothes, sitting alone on a bench with a distant look. It was Chris. "Hi," Amanda approached hesitantly, holding the parrot cage. "Are you Chris?" The boy looked at her and then at the cage. His eyes lit up, recognizing the bird. "Henry, you found Henry." "Yes, I found him in my son's room," Amanda replied, sitting down beside him. "You said you sold the parrot to Eric. Can you tell me more about it?" Chris told his story in a soft voice. "I was living in an orphanage, but they treated me really badly. I used to run away whenever I could, and one of those times, I met Henry at the park. He became my only friend. One day, I met Eric. He gave me his toys in exchange for Henry because he really wanted a pet." Amanda listened intently to every word, her heart squeezing, imagining Chris's loneliness. "And where are you living now?" she asked, already dreading the answer. "Anywhere," Chris shrugged. "Sometimes in the park, sometimes under bridges." A wave of compassion washed over Amanda. She saw in the boy the same pain and loneliness Eric must have felt. "Chris, would you like to come home with me? At least for today, you don't have to sleep on the streets." Chris's eyes widened in surprise. "Really? Would you do that?" "Of course," Amanda smiled, feeling a flicker of hope ignite in her heart. "Let's go home, and then we'll sort out the orphanage issue so no child is treated like that anymore." That night, Chris experienced something he hadn't felt in a long time: security. While Amanda arranged a place for him to sleep, she felt something shifting inside her. The pain of losing Eric was still overwhelming, but somehow, caring for Chris gave her a new purpose. And as the parrot Henry repeated, "Hi, Mommy," from the other room, Amanda felt that maybe, just maybe, Eric was watching over them. In the days that followed, Amanda worked hard to make Chris feel at home. She bought him new clothes, prepared warm meals, and ensured he had a comfortable place to sleep. Chris, in turn, began to open up more, sharing stories of his life in the orphanage and the hardships he faced on the streets. One evening, while they were having dinner, Amanda noticed Chris looking at the food with a mix of joy and sadness. "Is everything all right, Chris?" she asked, trying not to sound concerned. "Yeah, it's been so long since I've had a meal like this," he replied, lowering his gaze. Amanda felt a lump in her throat. "Well, now you can have as many as you want," she said with a warm smile. "You're part of the family now." Chris looked at her, surprised and moved. "Really? Do you really want me to stay?" "I do," Amanda replied, holding his hand, "and we'll sort out your situation. You deserve more than this life on the streets." With that in mind, Amanda called the police and reported the orphanage where Chris had been mistreated. Authorities began investigating, and soon after, the orphanage was shut down, and those responsible were arrested. The children who lived there were relocated to better institutions where they would receive the care and attention they deserved. During this process, Amanda and Chris grew closer. Chris started attending school, and though he was behind other students, Amanda helped him with his lessons every night. Gradually, he began to catch up and show his true potential. One afternoon, while Amanda and Chris were at the park with Henry the parrot, Chris asked, "Amanda, why are you doing all this for me?" Amanda looked at him, tears welling up in her eyes. "Because everyone deserves a second chance, Chris. And I feel that by taking care of you, I'm honoring my son's memory. Eric was a good kid, and he liked you. He would have wanted me to do this." Chris was silent for a moment, absorbing those words. Then, he smiled shyly and said, "I promise I'll do my best not to disappoint you." Amanda pulled Chris into a tight hug. "You're already doing that, Chris. You're already doing that." In that moment, Amanda felt that despite all the pain and loss, she had found a new purpose. And somehow, she knew Eric was proud of her, wherever he was. Amanda began to realize that Chris brought a new energy into her life. He helped around the house, always offering a shy smile, and gradually, the void left by Eric began to be filled by this new presence. One afternoon, Amanda found Chris in Eric's room, looking at the collection of toys that was still there. He seemed lost in thought. "Are you okay, Chris?" she asked, stepping into the room. "Yes," he replied, turning to her. "It's just, these toys are amazing. Eric must have been really lucky." Amanda felt a pang of sadness mixed with fondness. Eric loved these toys. They were a gift from his father before he passed away. He always cherished them. Chris nodded, understanding. I never had toys like these. At the orphanage, we had to share everything, and often the older kids took the best toys. Amanda approached and placed her hand on Chris's shoulder. You know, Chris, these toys are yours now too. Eric would have wanted you to have them. Chris's eyes widened. Really? You mean I can play with them? Of course, Amanda smiled. They're here to be enjoyed. And who better to play with them than you? Over the weeks, Chris began to make more room in his heart for Amanda. He started calling her Mom, and Amanda felt increasingly connected to him. One weekend, they decided to take a trip to Eric's grandparents' house in a nearby town. Amanda thought it would be good for Chris to learn more about the family that was now part of his life. The trip was a mix of emotions. Eric's grandparents were moved to meet Chris, and at the same time, the boy's presence brought up painful memories of their lost grandson. But with time, sorrow gave way to acceptance and hope. They realized that Chris, with his resilient spirit and generous heart, was helping to heal everyone's wounds. One evening, after a family dinner, Chris approached Amanda and said, Mom, I wanted to thank you. You've given me a new life. I never thought I could be this happy. Amanda hugged him tightly, tears streaming down her face. You've brought light into my life too, Chris. And I'm sure Eric is watching over us and smiling. As months passed, Amanda and Chris's life found a new rhythm. Amanda secured a new job as a nurse at a local clinic with more flexible hours that allowed her to spend more time with Chris. The boy, in turn, was excelling in school, making friends, and getting involved in extracurricular activities. One day, Amanda was called to a meeting with Chris's teacher, Miss Silva. Mrs. Jones, I wanted to talk about Chris's progress, the teacher began, with a smile on her face. He's a brilliant student and has been working really hard. But there's something else I'd like to discuss. Amanda felt a tightness in her chest, fearing some problem. What's wrong? Is he having difficulties? No, not at all, Miss Silva replied. In fact, Chris has shown an incredible talent for writing. His essays are touching and profound. I think he could benefit a lot from a writing workshop we're offering at school. Amanda felt a wave of pride. I always knew he was special, but this is wonderful. Of course, he can participate. When Amanda shared the news with Chris, he was overjoyed. Really, Mom? Do you think I can be a writer? I'm sure of it, sweetheart, Amanda replied, embracing him. You have a gift, and I'll do everything I can to support you. During the writing workshop, Chris flourished. His writings, laden with emotion and life experience, impressed not only the teachers but also his peers. In one of the classes, he wrote about his life in the orphanage and how he found a new family. The piece was so moving that the school decided to publish it in the local newspaper. The publication brought a wave of attention to Chris and Amanda. Several parents and teachers approached her, praising Chris and offering help and resources. Amanda began to realize that Chris's story could inspire many other children and adults to overcome their difficulties. Then, on a sunny Sunday while walking in the park, Amanda had an idea. Chris, what do you think about writing a book? Your story could help a lot of people. Chris looked at her with shining eyes. Do you think I can do that? I not only think so, I know you can, Amanda replied confidently. And I'll be by your side every step of the way. Thus, Amanda and Chris began working on the book together. Their nights were filled with stories, laughter, and some tears as Chris narrated his experiences and Amanda helped shape the words. And through this process, they both discovered a new form of healing and connection. And so, what began as a simple idea turned into a journey of self-discovery and hope, showing that even in the shadows of loss, the seeds of the future can blossom into something beautiful and inspiring. The following months were intense for Amanda and Chris. Every night, after dinner, they sat at the kitchen table with a laptop and stacks of notebooks, turning Chris's memories and feelings into poignant chapters. Chris, this part about how you found Henry in the park is amazing, Amanda said, pointing to a page. But maybe you could talk more about what you felt at that moment. Chris nodded thoughtfully. I felt so lonely before I found Henry. He was like a ray of sunshine on a cloudy day. I'll try to write about that. Amanda watched Chris as he wrote, admiring the maturity and depth of his words. Each completed chapter seemed like a step forward in both of their emotional healing. One night, Amanda had an idea. "Chris, would you mind if I shared some excerpts from your book with a friend of mine? He's an editor and might be able to help us." Chris looked at her with wide eyes. "Do you think he'll like it?" "I'm sure he'll love it," Amanda replied, smiling. Amanda sent a few chapters to her editor friend, and within a few days, she received an enthusiastic response. "Amanda, this is incredible. Chris's talent is evident, and I'd love to help publish this book," the email read. When Amanda told Chris the news, he was speechless, just hugging her tightly. "Is this real, Mom? Are we really going to publish a book?" "Yes, dear. And not just any book. A book that will touch people's hearts," Amanda replied, tears of happiness in her eyes. With the editor's help, the publishing process began to take shape. There were meetings, revisions, and many nights of hard work, but each challenge only brought Amanda and Chris closer together. They learned to support each other, to celebrate every small victory, and to face every obstacle together. Finally, the big day arrived. The book was ready, and the release date was set. Amanda organized a small party at home to celebrate, inviting close friends and Eric's grandparents. "I'm so proud of you, Chris," Amanda said, raising a juice glass for a toast. "You've turned your pain into something beautiful and inspiring. Eric would be so proud of you." Chris smiled shyly, raising his glass. "Thank you, Mom. I couldn't have done it without you." At that moment, as everyone toasted and celebrated, Amanda felt that something profound had changed. It wasn't just the publication of the book, but the journey they had traveled together, a journey of love, loss, and above all, of hope and rebirth. And so, Chris and Amanda's story, which began with pain and sadness, transformed into a narrative of overcoming, showing that even the darkest moments can give rise to something extraordinary. With the success of Chris's book, Amanda and he began receiving touching messages from readers who identified with the story. Emails, letters, and even personal visits from people who found comfort and inspiration in Chris's words flooded their lives. One day, Amanda received a letter from a mother who was going through a tough time with her adopted son. "Dear Amanda and Chris," the letter said, "your book brought light to our family. My daughter, who also went through difficult times, read your book and found hope. I can't thank you enough for sharing your story." Chris smiled as he read the letter. "Mom, look what we've been able to do," he said, his eyes shining. "Our story is making a difference in people's lives." Amanda hugged Chris, feeling a mix of pride and gratitude. "You're amazing, Chris, and your generous heart is touching so many lives." As time went on, Amanda and Chris became advocates for adoption and support for children in difficult situations. They visited schools, participated in community events, and shared their story whenever they could. During one of these visits, Chris met a boy in the orphanage who was going through a situation similar to his own. He held the boy's hand and said gently, "I know how hard it is, but you're not alone. Believe in yourself and never give up on your dreams." The boy looked at Chris with admiration. "You're Chris from the book, aren't you?" Chris nodded, smiling. "And I want to be your friend, if you'll let me." Amanda watched the scene with a heart overflowing with love. She saw how much Chris had grown since the day he entered their lives. He wasn't just her son anymore. He was a symbol of hope and courage for so many others. And so, Chris and Amanda's journey continued beyond the pages of the book, inspiring and illuminating the path for many facing similar challenges. Every smile, every hug, and every word of encouragement were living testimonies to how love and perseverance can transform lives. As Chris and Amanda continued to share their story, an unexpected twist occurred. A local film producer, inspired by their story, reached out to discuss the possibility of adapting the book into a movie. Amanda was stunned by the news. "A movie? How did this happen?" The producer explained that he had read the book and been deeply moved by Chris's narrative. "Your story has the potential to reach an even larger audience and inspire even more people," he said. Chris was thrilled, barely believing the possibility of seeing his life on the big screen. "Mom, can we really make a movie?" Amanda looked at him tenderly. "If you want to, we can try. But remember, The most important thing is to tell our story with honesty and respect. With the support of the producer, the adaptation process began. There were meetings, script discussions, and casting choices. Chris was involved in every step, sharing his memories and insights to ensure the film captured the essence of his journey. During filming, Amanda and Chris visited the set regularly. They met the actors playing their younger selves and watched with fascination as their lives were recreated on camera. In an emotional scene, Chris watched as the actor playing his younger self recreated the moment he found Henry in the park. Tears welled up in Chris's eyes as he relived that memory of hope and friendship. The film brought even more attention to the cause of adoption and support for children in difficult situations. Chris and Amanda were invited to interviews, premiere events, and even to speak at conferences on resilience and youth empowerment. Premiere night arrived, and Amanda and Chris watched the film side by side, holding hands. The lights dimmed, the screen came to life, and their stories filled the cinema with emotion and inspiration. And so, the tide of change continued to flow, carrying Chris and Amanda beyond their boldest dreams, showing the world that with love, courage, and determination, any story can become a journey of hope and renewal. The success of the film brought profound changes for Chris and Amanda. With the income generated from the film adaptation and the book, they established a foundation in Eric's name. The Eric Jones Foundation aimed to support orphaned and vulnerable children, offering them educational and emotional opportunities that Chris believed were essential for a bright future. Amanda found a new passion in her role as president of the foundation. She traveled across the country, visiting schools and orphanages, connecting with youth and sharing Eric and Chris's story. Each smile she helped inspire brought a renewed sense of purpose to her life. Chris, meanwhile, continued to write. His second book, a collection of stories from other adopted children and their journeys, became an instant bestseller. He became an active spokesperson for adoption awareness and the importance of a loving and supportive environment for children's healthy growth. Both Chris and Amanda knew that Eric was watching over them from somewhere, proud of what they had achieved together. Every step taken, every obstacle overcome, was a tribute to Eric's love and memory. On a spring night, Amanda and Chris sat in the garden of the home they now called their own, looking up at the starry sky. "Mom," Chris said softly, "I could never have imagined our life could be like this." Amanda smiled, placing her hand over his. "Neither could I, dear. But sometimes, life gives us wonderful surprises when we least expect them." And so, the sun set on the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. For Amanda and Chris, it wasn't just the end of a journey, but the beginning of a new story of hope, love, and renewal. Comment on your opinion about this story and share it with your friends. It can inspire them and brighten their days. Until the next emotional story,